do a few at a time, give other people a chance. But you mentioned people from all over the world coming over to like Palestinian or Israel land and becoming settlers. Does that mean that people from Israel or Jewish people, are they all returning back to the Middle East?
What do you mean?
You said that there was people coming from Europe, like when you met the person from Australia, and he was bringing outsiders back into the Middle East, like Palestine land. Yeah.
Back?
Was he bringing them back?
I mean, back? Is the question as in back?
As in,
when did they leave?
Did they originate from there through their grandfathers? And
in what year?
I don't know.
He's asking the question because he doesn't know. He's just asking where are they coming from.
Well, about the same time that we're talking about the idea of, I mean, so what's the specific question?
Steve, you saw the Australian guy, right? And he had people that he was showing around because they wanted to buy houses there. Obviously, they didn't live in the Middle East, did they? Am I right?
Correct.
Right. Does that mean that people from all over the world are going to move into the occupied territory?
Oh, they're there. They're already there. And I think that the creation of the state in 1948 was that. It was Theodor Herzl, largely seen as the founder of the political ideology of Zionism, was Hungarian himself. He was the founder of Zionism, the belief in establishing the state of Israel on Palestinian land, which was realized in 1948. He was a Hungarian man. Okay? He's a person who was of the religion of Judaism. I mean, largely quite irreligious, actually. You know, many of the early Zionist settlers and movements were socialists, were atheists, but he was seen as the founder and was from Hungary, and that was in 1896. So between 1896 and 1948, there was a movement. Palestine at the time was under Turkish rule, under the Ottoman rule, and you know, they went about trying to purchase land. So, you know,
I was going to say real quick. I know what you mean. There are Jews who come over to Palestine by their right of return.
Yeah.
So, you know, they didn't just steal the land, they also took our right of return title as well.
Like people from all over the world.
They're coming from all over the world, but they're saying we're coming back by religious terms.
Yeah.
They're coming back to their land. I mean, I don't know if you noticed in Hebron the signs that say coming back to our borders, our natural borders, but there's no, I mean, it's not, you know, they're talking in religious terms. They obviously, and there were Jews there, obviously, hundreds of years ago, but these aren't the ones that were there, nor were their ancestors.
Oh,
well, also at the time when there was a large population of Jewish people in the land, there were pagans here. So on that basis, could you then say that every person that subscribes to paganism could come and kick? You know, for instance, my side of my family, one side of my family are English and have lived in Dover forever. Could they then be kicked out of their house as people who lived in Dover by pagans? Because thousands of years ago, people that subscribed to the belief system of paganism lived here. I mean, it's quite an insane concept, actually, because then no one belongs anywhere. Then anyone could go to any part of the earth and say thousands, because it's thousands, we're talking thousands of years ago, there's people who had the same belief system as me. Therefore, I rightfully own this land.
Israeli law means, yeah, that if you are of the Jewish religion, you can return and live in Israel. But what the Palestinians are fighting for is the right for them to return to the land that they were born in. And it seems just quite ludicrous to me, because you constantly hear within this argument that the Palestinians chose to leave in 1948. Now, we all know that's not true, but even if you're going to make the argument that the Palestinians, well, you know, they were being murdered, you know, like at Deir Hassan and stuff, they were being massacred, so some did leave and become refugees, and they will keep saying Palestinians don't have the right to return because they left of their own accord, but that doesn't even make any sense. They keep saying, oh, Palestinians, but they left. But who's stopping them coming back? If the Israeli government is stopping them coming back.
But also, it's not just like a person that's Jewish. It's, as I said earlier, there's something called the grandfather clause, which means the person that has one Jewish grandparent is entitled to go and claim Israeli citizenship. And people that the indigenous people, this is the issue. It's an issue of indigenous and invasion. Take everything else out of this question and just look at it. The Palestinians are the indigenous people of this land, and they have been subject to invasion and ethnic cleansing over the past 100 years.
Let me just add also, that same guy, Daniel Luria, he goes to houses in Sheikh Jarrah in Jerusalem and other areas, Arab neighborhoods in Jerusalem, and he goes with the IDF and with activists, so-called activists, and he tells them, he goes with papers to say that that house no longer belongs to them. Why? Because when they owned that house, or when they owned the land, it was during the British Mandate, and it was a different law. So he comes and he says, well, your law is void now, and non-applicable. This is a new law, which means he needs to get the hell out, and let us move in. Not even let us, and basically we're moving in. So, you know, he goes to people's houses. There's you can find videos of him going into houses, old ladies and old men getting dragged out the house in their pajamas, bare feet, bare foot, and they're standing outside their house in the street, and this guy's in the house dancing about, doing some silly dance, and they're singing, all in the name of Judaism.
But it's also basically, in essence, the same ideology that someone like Christopher Columbus or Captain Cook would have had when he arrived in what we now call Australia, a land that used to be over 500 nations and is now one. But we're talking about something which is taking place. I mean, it's still, I think the genocide against the indigenous people, Aboriginal people, is still taking place, and I do believe in the United States the indigenous people have the same life expectancy as a man in Afghanistan or Somalia, two countries which have recently, have been on the receiving end of US military involvement. That tells you something about the war against the indigenous there as well. But I think it's the same, it's basically a similar ideology of placing the importance and the interest of the invader over the importance and interest of the indigenous.
And just quickly, if you do want to find out more information, there's another documentary that's made called This Is Hebron, which is just so unbelievable, and you will see exactly what the argument is and the insanity of it. There's people who are living in Hebron, like just a few hundred of them, in the middle of all these Palestinians because Abraham and Lot were buried there.
Where will I find that?
You could go online and look it up, and it will tell you a lot more information about that.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Guys, we talk to that.
Do you see a day in which Palestinians and Israelis will get together in peace?
I'd say, what is Israelis? Any one of us in this room that have a Jewish grandparent, that's a citizen of Britain and a citizen of the United States, are we Israelis? Because give us 2 months, we could be. The basic thing I believe that needs to be completely understood in its entirety is Zionism. Zionism is wrong. That needs to be understood for there to be any type of peace.
Let me just say, Israelis do want peace. Israelis are Israeli Arabs, Israeli Palestinians, Palestinians who hold Israeli citizenship, Israelis are Jews. These are human beings also, let's be real and not go a bit too irrational about it. People want peace. No one wants to live, I mean, you've got these people that are exposed obviously for a reason. There's bad people everywhere. But people do want peace. People want to live, in harmony, and they don't want to be living in violence every day of their life. They don't want to hate their next door neighbor. But the government has programmed these people to program their kids. And, if you train a dog to bite, he'll bite. So, it's the same thing. It's really what kind of, as soon as we get rid of the poison that is being, poured into these communities and these people, then I think that's the start really. It comes down to, that.
I think that for you to ask the question is kind of a premature question, because people keep going, can Israelis and Palestinians live in peace? It shouldn't really be asking that. What we should be asking is, how can we help that? And the way that you can help that is to try and do your best to help change laws and help the situation for the Palestinian people who are on the ground, who are living this kind of life every single day. And there are things that we can do in our everyday life, you know, to work towards that. The Palestinian people have made a call. What they've asked for is they've asked for the world to be involved in BDS, which is boycott, divestment and sanctions, in the same way that sanctions and boycotts were placed on the South African government, or South Africa itself, in order to bring down the apartheid regime over there, and it worked economically. So if anybody here, I mean, both if you're watching that and you feel moved by that, and you feel moved by the Palestinian plight in general, you know, in everyday life, there's certain things you shouldn't buy. There's certain things that you shouldn't be spending your money on. Do you know what I mean? There's certain products. There's a website called bdsmovements.net. You can go on there. You can see a list of products that you shouldn't be buying, because when you buy these products, what you're doing is you're paying for bullets that kill Palestinian people, that kill the people in Golan Heights. If you're buying things from Nestle, then you help pay for that. So you can't look at that and say, oh, I'm disgusted by that, but I really love my MAC lip gloss. You can't. You have to make a choice. And I would urge everybody to get involved in BDS, but it's the thing that you do constantly, all the time. It's not, you know, I always say BDS like contraception. It's not a sometime thing. You have to do it, and you have to do it properly.
But let's just say realistically that this country, England, that we live in, was placed under mandate of a foreign power in 1919. And between 1919 and 1948, there was a movement of Buddhist people that wanted to establish a Buddhist supremacist entity in the middle of England on about 70% of English land. Let's just say that happened. Buddhist people from all over the world said, you know what? England is our home. We're going to go and take English land. We will kick people out of their homes and we will make that happen. Say the Buddhist state was established in 1948. Say about 6 million English people couldn't come anywhere near England. They try and return home and they are shot at by these Buddhist soldiers. The idea of them saying, will there ever be peace between these two people, is reliant on turning around and saying, well, in the beginning, this idea that these Buddhist people have the right from all over the world, wherever they are coming from, to come and take this land, is wrong. Like, it's wrong. It's wrong as far as humans are concerned. And like Shadia said, there's plenty of Israelis, people with Israeli citizenship that are anti-Zionist. And many of them are suffering for it and being put in jail, like Vanunu. You know, they are anti-Zionists. They realize that Zionism was wrong. You know, there are people that come as Zionists and then change. But it's on that basis. You can't have peace on the basis of, I have a right to 70% of your home. It just doesn't make sense. And when you have a huge population of people who cannot return, how do you ever expect there to be peace with that entity?
Okay, any more questions?